Well, good evening, loyal listeners of the I Still Call It a Lariat Network. I am Howard Meat Sweats Morgan. Joining us as always is the chick magnet Mozart Fontaine. And
I
this
feel
is
like I need
another.
a cooler nickname. I can't be. Can I be like Crockpot or something?
And this is hopefully another entertaining episode of Down the Wrestling Rabbit Hole. Not sure where it's going to go. It's kind of like a ship without a rudder. Or is that kind of how it goes? Like it
I
just.
thought you just called it a shithole.
Well, that too. I mean, it may be that too. Who knows? But I got to get something off my chest that's really been bubbling for weeks now, and
Weeks or minutes?
weeks, and it started out as minutes, and I tried to ignore it and push it down, and it just kept festering and festering. So,
Children of the Lariat, of the I Still Call It a Lariat podcast, this is your host, your therapist, Mozart Fontaine. I'm here to listen to Howard Meat Sweats Morgan get this off his chest.
yeah.
Go ahead, Meat.
So we're, and I want to try to do this as tactfully as possible, but I need a hero, Mozart. As the old slugger, I'm holding out for a hero.
The Bonnie Tyler
So I need a hero. I'm holding out for a hero, and I wish to God if Trips is listening when he listens to this podcast, because he will download it and he listens to it, because we are the hottest podcast going, and he might learn something. You know,
for real.
And I'm going to throw out a spoiler alert. So if you don't want to hear what I got to say, cover your ears for about 10 seconds, because I'm going to spoil everything for you. Gunther will be John Cena's last opponent.
Oh, I hope you're wrong.
Did you hear that? The whole nation just groaned. I think they just all collectively sighed.
For the love of God. There's no money in that whatsoever. There's nothing about that.
I say that because the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community, is blowing up about this being his last opponent and blah, 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 this, that. I need K-Fabe to come back, Mozart. I need that veil of secrecy to be lifted. I know we've pulled the curtain way, way back.
Yeah.
We need to close it up. If your intention is to have Gunther be his last opponent, then just friggin' have the match and be done with it. Why have this senseless tournament where there's all kinds of guys, surprise guests, and all this all this other stuff? Just have the damn match and be done with it. Stop leading us along Gunther's going to win.
Do you think that there are two questions for you? Do you think, honestly, really, that that's going to happen? Or do you think that if that's the plan, do you think that they would swerve it because everybody knows now and try to be like, so much smarter? And if they do go ahead with it, that's my first question, is do you think they'll go ahead with it if that's the plan? And I have no clue. I don't have any inside knowledge. But the other side of that is, do you, as a wrestling fan, and suffice to say, even still, even though it's rough to watch, you're still a fan of wrestling. Is that a marquee match to you? What's the value? What do you get out of that match if it happens? Like,
so here's my thing. One, I do believe it, as painful as it is. I'm getting a visceral feeling right here. I had a cheeseburger and mac and cheese for dinner tonight, so it's starting to work its way back up the more I'm thinking about it. And Gunther is not the guy. I hope to God that this gets out, and like you said, they swerve it at the last minute and fool us all. I would be tickled pink if this was all a big work on us, the fans, to believe that Gunther is going, and then have somebody else win it. And two, is it a marquee matchup? But not in any century, in any era. The past, present, or future is Gunther Cena a marquee. I dare call it a mid-card match at this point, because I just find Gunther boring, bland, and he wasn't always. I just think he's gotten I think he's kind of run its course. I think they need to either, take him off television for a while, repackage him some kind of way, let his contractor, I don't know, something to spice up that character.
Right. I'll play, let me, it's not devil's advocate. Let me jump on that bandwagon with you. I think he's probably one of the most boring people I've ever watched. I'm not talking about him as a person, or I don't know him. Um, if you're talking about, let's talk about guys who've gotten released. Um, Braun Strowman. Do I by any means think that he's a technical genius? Absolutely not. But there's a little bit of charisma there. I mean, hell, and I'll be honest with you, facts are his meat show, whatever that thing is, the what's it called, I'll order everything on the menu. I watched it, and it's way more entertaining than wrestling, and
Is it
that hurts
really?
me to say. It's way more entertaining.
I
He's
have not seen it yet.
charismatic. He's in the kitchen. They're cooking. They're talking about they're in different towns, and they're talking about the food that they. It's just really cool to see this big dude who has a repertoire, and he's got this sweet side to him. So they let him go. I don't know the details. Who cares? Whatever. He's gone. I just watched two guys that I really liked to watch years back, Zack Ryder and Dolph Ziggler. Okay, two surprises, both lose. What do you get out of it? Is this their tryout again? Because there's a lot of ego games in wrestling. They should never have to try out.
No.
Maybe there's a bigger picture I don't know about. I will highly say I doubt that though. So you got all these surprise entrants. Nobody goes over though. It's the same guys in a stale scene and I got to tell you, as a kid who's been in wrestling, for 20 some years, I grew up watching it. This last run of Cena's is one of the worst that's ever happened in wrestling. I don't know whose fault it is, but it's terrible. From the
Very
get-go,
underwhelming.
from
Yeah.
the start, there's no direction. There's no clear-cut opponents. It's all being done on a whim. And if it's not, it sure looks like it, and it looks terrible. So my question, going back to, if it's Gunther, what do they get out of it? Do they expect? Isn't he already considered a star there? I don't think he is, but they consider him one. So
Right.
what's Cena going to do? He needs to make a star. It's traditional traditional in the business on your way out to make a star. Why is it not Javon? Why don't they reinvigorate Dolph? Why don't hell it's all over the place. They signed Joe Hendry. Maybe the tournaments for Not and Joe ends up in there and they make a big star. I hope so. Do something that's not this bullshit that everybody's already seen. The feuds now last 20 years. Why? Because they can't make new stars. They milk the ones they have until they can't move anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Make a new star. I mean, in all honesty, why was Taker in the ring as long as he was? And I can tell you why. Like, they needed him.
They needed him.
They needed him.
Absolutely.
If he would still do it, I guarantee you they'd still let him in the ring, and they'd want him in the ring. If he agreed to do it, there would be no qualms about it.
Right.
That's bad. Like, you can't, for all, and these are the same internet wrestling folks who will knock Ric Flair for a decade-long title run. Why?
Yeah.
He dropped it throughout the years. His feud with Dusty intertwined years and years. His feud with Harley, his feud with Steamboat went like this, Howard, through a decade.
Yeah.
It's not the same stale matchups with the same stale guys like you get now. You're going to get Drew and Cody. I couldn't care less. You're going to get, Punk and somebody in the top scene. It's the same guys interjected for years and years and years. And it's boring, man. Like, I want to see the young guys coming up. You know what I mean? I want to see, develop the bronze. Like, why are they not tag champs, or at least making a serious run at the tag titles to establish?
I don't think they've even had a match yet.
I mean,
titles.
And this is going to hurt a lot of people's feelings, but Logan Paul is a lot better than most wrestlers that are currently on the roster. And he's better because he's an athlete. He gets it. I don't care about his person. I don't know him. Take all he did this, he said this, he did this on a podcast. Don't care. He puts eyes on the product. His matches are believable. His punch, they should just all go back and study his punch, because don't get me started on the punches.
I got to say that I was the biggest get Logan Paul person out of wrestling, because when he first came on the scene, I thought, here's this celebrity.
Yeah.
Going to, and this, I want to, and I say with the utmost respect, I want to protect the business as much as I can from a fan's point of view.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
I don't want to see a celebrity coming off the street and do what you and all the guys, whether they're WWE, ECWA, Ring of Honor, wherever they are, have done it for decades and come right off the street and just do it and be a top guy. To me, that's bull crap. That you need to put your time in, you need to pay your dues, and earn that spot. And again, we talked about before, he's not taking anybody's spot. That's very,
Now,
very clear. But
that's a
I've watched
fallacy
him.
too. Yeah.
I've seen YouTube clips. I've seen videos. He's taking this very seriously. He's his
Well,
training.
he's a fan. That's
Yes,
the thing. Is like he was watching it as a kid. Him and his brother doing WWF moves, WWE moves, whatever, in the in their house, whatever. So he's no less of a fan than the people who are knocking him, right? So there's that's a problem.
right,
And then look at celebrities like you had Dennis Rodman come in the late '90s, right? Or was it late '90s, early 2000s with Hogan? I mean, he did nothing but put eyes on a product, but it didn't seem like the backlash was that bad for a guy outside of the wrestling business. Celebrities are nothing new. I think that if you study wrestling and you look at it, you've always used them on the independent level. We use the local celebrities.
I get that, but back then I knew Rodman. I know, even Jay Leno. They were attractions. They weren't.
And
Here
Jay
for
was
the
a
long
fan
haul.
too, though. I mean, if you're a fan of it and you're not, if you're a guy that's sitting there knocking it all the time, if Jay's Leno's night, if his what do you call it? I don't even know what they're called. There's late night shows. If you're knocking it every night, but then you go take a payday, all right, yeah, maybe I got a problem. But he was a fan. He had guys on his show. He would go to shows. Jelly Roll's another example. He's a fan, and he
Right,
lost over 100 pounds, I think. Didn't he? It might have been closer to 200. He got in shape. He put on a decent match. Nothing wrong with that. Because sometimes you and look at it like this. Ask yourself why a promoter, no matter what, would use an outside guy if their guys are drawing like they should. They wouldn't. So, it's part of the promoter's fault too, because they're not the booking's terrible, but you just don't have guys that are stars. And then you
no,
have guys that don't look legit doing what they do. And, everybody, nobody's perfect. There's going to be some hiccups. You put on a match, something's bound to go wrong. That's okay. But you have to cover it. You can't just be, oh, okay, oh, cool, I messed up, and oh, by the way, I'm on whatever network, Netflix, or I'm on ESPN, and I just blew one of the major spots of the match that's very integral, but that's cool. And oh, by the way, I'm also making a lot of money,
right.
And there's reasons, I've talked with some buddies, and we've speculated like, yeah, they're just not getting in the work that they used to get in. Understood, very much understood. But when you're really good at what you do, and I know this firsthand because I've, not saying that I'm really good, I just know that I can be out of the ring for months and months and months. I debate whether ring rust is a real thing, because it's like riding a bike.
Right.
Once you know
I
how
think
to
it's
do
more
it,
laziness, and once you,
that's kind of where I'm going.
yeah,
That's where I'm going. Like, yes, you might not have the work of, say Ric Flair or Steamboat or, Rick Martel, the Tito, all the greats that we always talk about, because they were working every night and twice on Sunday. And that's a real thing. That's not an overstatement. So yes, they were doing a lot of work with a lot of the same guys, and they were getting very good. But as much as they were working with the same guys, they were also switching off, because part of the upside of the territory system was guys didn't stay around for more than 6 months to a year before they were moving on to a next program in the next territory. And that's kind of how the promoters worked it, yeah, you could stick longer, you could stick less. There's always, exceptions, but now you've got a locked in roster that becomes stale real quick because you are really working the same people. So you can quickly become stale with them. And then when you take away the ability to work the house shows and probably more than half of the work that they're getting in to get really good, and you stick them with somebody different, it's like, I'm an expert on a BMX bike, but then you put me on a 10 speed, 12 speed road bike racer, I might skin my shin all up on the pedal, right? So it's not the same exact thing. So I feel like if you get really good overall and they had a little bit more freedom to work to their ability rather than what the writer thinks their ability is, because that becomes apparent to me too, that whoever's putting together the presentation isn't looking at their talent and saying, I see the level of this person. I think there's two, a couple things, Howard. There's the promoters, whoever it is, the writers, whatever. I don't really know what they call them now. I don't really know what the producer's job is. I know when I've helped, it's only to give direction. I'm not on a headset calling out, like they do spots and making sure they're at the right place in the right time for commercial breaks. But I feel like that's over scripted. I
Yeah.
feel like, you know, yeah, maybe I'd try to be in a down point in the match when I go to commercial, but I feel like it's just gotten over scripted, and it's been more about capturing those moments to put on YouTube or TikTok or Facebook, than it has been putting on a wrestling match for the live crowd. And that translates over to pay-per-views or whatever they're calling them now, because you don't have a commercial, but yet they're still doing the same matches. When 15, 20, 25 years ago, when wrestling was having that explosion again, you had different types of matches. You had your house show matchup, which could be very exciting because it was completely designed to keep the crowd there into the match. Then you had a really different kind of exciting match, maybe a little bit shorter, a little bit more concise, some more bigger moments in it for your main shows. And then you save the really big, let's just no holds barred for your pay-per-views. I don't see that anymore. I see the same match, whether you're at the house show, whether you're on TV. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And getting back to the K-Fabe, I think and listen, I could be way off on this, but from a fan's perspective, it's a very simple fix.
Yeah.
And it could be done, and it could literally be fixed, tomorrow. I think
Mm-hmm.
what needs to happen, again, coming from a fan's perspective, is let's pretend, Triple H is running WWF at WWE, whatever they're called today. He's running it.
TKO.
He is the Vince McMahon, right? He's the
Mm-hmm.
buck stops here. This is it. So you have Triple H, and then you need 2, maybe 3 people like a Bruce Pritchard, a Jim Ross, a Jim Cornette, somebody along those lines, Gerald Briscoe, those guys, but not many. Keep your circle small.
Yeah.
Talk amongst yourselves on how this year is going to go. Even if let's start, this SmackDown coming up. This is how we're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And don't tell anybody shit until you get to the arena. Mozart and Howard, you show up in Albany, New York, or where were they last night? Madison Square Garden, right? You are going to have a match in Madison Square Garden. You need to be there at X time, and then you're the 4th match on the card. Blah blah blah. So our job is to get to the arena right now. Now we have to get there. We don't know what the match is until we get there, and then maybe at the 3rd match, they come to us and say, okay, Howard, Mozart, you have 9 minutes. Mozart, you're going over. Okay, great. Now,
and I'm like, what does that mean? No, I'm just kidding.
So
I'm only good at putting my shoulders to the mat.
None of this shit gets out into the internet because less people are open. And Triple H has got to tell them, listen, don't fucking talk to nobody. Excuse my language. That you're not saying a word to anybody. Don't let it get out.
You know what happens with that part of it too, I think, is they can still control that. It doesn't have to be 10 minutes before you go on. They just have to really enforce it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they can. And the guys will take it seriously if you give them the boys, the girls, whatever. We affectionately call everybody the boys.
It's the boys for a generic term, yes.
The boys would take that very seriously if they knew there was something at stake for them. I'm not going to walk into a match and I got a couple of friends coming and, I know that the promoter's going to sell some tickets around it. I'm not going to get on my phone and start telling everybody what's going on because, number one, it's just unprofessional and I was trained not to do that. But if you give the boys a little something in there, there's a stake. There's something at stake. Like they can hide enough secrets, like they don't. You don't. Is it hard in today's age with cell phones to sneak somebody into a building? Maybe a little bit harder, but it's not impossible. You put a little effort into it. Nobody has to know who shows up at the building or when or where or
Right.
what they're doing. You can easily get them in and out of a building without anybody knowing who they are. Um, you can still keep secrets, and the proof of that is they do it when they want to. So there's this. I don't think it's a theory anymore, but there used to be this theory when I was younger in wrestling that certain upper level people, and I don't have specific names, but certain upper level people would let things leak out because they felt that if they got to one of the internet writers or one of the sheet guys that they could just get this in and they'd be so cool and they'd be so over with that crowd, which I don't really know how that translates to money, but they thought it did. Um, they would trust them with these secrets. Oh, we're going to break the story to you. And then next thing you know, everybody knows and the surprise is out. But
Right.
again, what's the point of a surprise? Like, I'm reading yesterday, oh my God, Nick Nemeth is there. This is going to be tremendous, right? Dolph's going to make an appearance. This is going to be awesome. Did he have a great showing? One of the best performances they've had on TV. It's certainly better than a lot of their marquee pay-per-view performances. Zach was the same way.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Matt
Different
Cardona and Zack
level of
Ryder
work
was
too.
the same.
If I get technical and I talk about those guys, those two guys in particular, the way that they worked the crowd and worked around the ring, they're head and shoulders above even some of the quote unquote main eventers that are currently right now getting those big contracts and working those big matches. The way that Zach moved from position to position, he's working the trade craft. He's doing what he was taught to do in a really concise manner. It makes for a really nice product, but the fan, it's transparent. It's just important. Whereas when you see sloppy things happen and you're like, oh, and I'm not, this goes beyond like botches and blowing spots. Like look, people are human. I'm just talking about the way he moves, the reasons that he hits, the reasons that he kicks, how you get an opponent into position, how you get yourself into position. He and Dolph are really, really good at that. They worked at a time where it wasn't optional to be on TV. You had to be that good to be on TV.
Right.
You don't anymore, and it's really apparent. So when
Absolutely.
you see those guys, you see how over they were. I don't think it was just nostalgia. I think the nostalgia helped, especially with the stakes. But again, I ask, going back to this, you're really hell bent on, you think Gunther's going to go to
Yeah.
the finals. I don't, only because I see 0 point in that. I see it as one of the most boring matches you'll ever see. I also see it as there's no payoff to it. What's the payoff? He's already, no offense to the guy himself, I don't see him as a top main event guy. I don't see
No.
that. I never have. But they already think he is. So what's the payoff to putting him in the ring with Cena if you already think he's that guy?
Right. There isn't one.
So that's one side. So you're not getting anything out of that. It's a fact.
Right.
They already think he's a top guy. He's already won the championship
Right.
multiple
He's a former
times.
champion, so technically
There's
he was a top
nobody.
guy.
Yeah, so there's nothing to get over on him. That makes no sense. Nobody can logically have that discussion with me. It doesn't make any sense. I'll poke holes all through it. There's no reason that that's the logic to put him in the ring with Cena. The only thing that makes sense to me is maybe Cena said, I really want to wrestle this guy. All right, it's Cena's last run, give him what he wants. But the match still, nonetheless, is not going to be some stellar match. And it's not going to be, there's no payoff on that side. So what you'd want to do with a guy like Cena going out is to make a new star.
Right.
And or make a really memorable last moment. They won't get that out of that match.
No,
They're dead wrong if they think so. So the other thing that you can get out of the match is Marquis, Dave Bautista. I'm not saying I know any of this. I'm just throwing people who would be Marquis. Chris Jericho, Edge. They're not going to happen. But that's what you would need to get a marquee name out of that particular match, right? You need a big name who's either returning or already there. Well, they shot their load on Brock. The only shot they have and I'm not even sure it'll work, is Randy, because he's kind of been out of the picture a little bit.
Hey, no, he has, and the two guys you
Randy
mentioned with Jericho
could work.
And Batista,
Mm-hmm.
there
Not
is
going to happen.
but as far as branding and marquee, there's name recognition outside of wrestling,
right?
And
if you're not going to make a star, then you need a marquee matchup. It's got to be Jericho. It's got to be Edge. It's got to be somebody that's a marquee star. It's got some type of history with Cena, right?
Right.
Or it's got to be you make a new guy.
Right, and that's where I was going. Like, I don't know if it was on Busted Open that I was listening to, or where I heard it, and I'm glad you brought up traditionally a little bit ago that because traditionally a guy going out, a guy leaving the company, whatever he's going to do, or even from one champion to the next, that passing of the torch, traditionally, a couple of things happen. One, and I'll use Cena, and I don't know this for a fact, but Cena in his last match loses his last match to, let's pretend it's not Gunther. You lose your last match. And let's say, it's Javon, who I love. I mean, he was, even in his match with Gunther last night.
Yeah, man, he was good, right?
I was like, wow,
he's making waves. He's got a great look. Yeah.
He's
great in the ring.
Does it hurt Cena to lose to him on his last match? Absolutely not. But man, what it does to Javon or whoever else it might be, an up and comer, it skyrockets him, literally to 5 or 6 tiers above where he's at now because he beat John Cena. Gunther's got nothing.
It'll do nothing for him. A win wouldn't do anything for him.
And none of the guys that are still in the tournament, LA Knight, nothing. God forbid they throw a swerve and Solo Sikoa beats Cena. Nothing. It's a lateral move. It's no star is made. Okay, big deal. Cena lost to LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, Gunther on his last match. We'll forget that a month after John Cena's gone.
Yeah.
What we won't forget is somebody like Javon, somebody that we don't expect to be there, and he beats John Cena.
And you may, there's different ways to do it. It's traditional to want to give the nod to somebody on the way out of a territory or in the modern times on the way out of a company. He doesn't have to. He could still make a star out of Javon and pick up the win. He could still make a star out of Dolph Dolph, already what, but he could still re-elevate somebody like that. He could reestablish, Cardona because he's just killing it on
Can you imagine if Cardona beat Cena in his last match?
You could have saved, again, I don't know the overall booking. I'm just throwing out ideas because that does impact things too. But why did Dom lose when he did? Why didn't Dom have a great match at the end of the last thing? Cena wins the title, retires as the champ, and they can, do a tourney or they're already doing one. So they might as well, they could have saved the whole, there's a lot of different things. Booking's subjective, but the point of the booking is not.
Right.
The point of it is to draw money, let's put it in today's, to draw views. It's ultimately still to draw money. It's done in different ways, but the point of booking is not subjective. It's to draw money. They are not drawing money. It's obvious when my man Braun Strowman's cooking show beats 3 of the 4 major wrestling shows with 3. So it beat SmackDown, NXT, and AEW. And it if I'm not wrong, it crushed NXT and AEW. It did beat SmackDown too for that 1 week. I don't know about this week. It was 2 weeks ago. That says something. A cooking show. It's not a cooking show. It's one of the foodie shows, one of those reality foodie shows, which I happen to like. Guy Fieri, like who doesn't, right?
I'll have to check that out.
Those are cool.
I love Guy Fieri.
So I thought they would be the dumbest thing ever, but I'll sit and watch every damn one of them because they're captivating. I want to see what that chef is making. I want to hear about that town, why that's their favorite dish. They're done well.
Yeah.
Wrestling is not done well.
But getting back
to the point of it's just not subjective. Like the way you get there is subjective, but the
Right.
point of booking is to make money. That's period. End of
Right.
story. There's a big giant period on that. You
So
know.
so again, pretending that, and I hate to use the word pretend, but wrestling wrestling is a combat sport, and let's look at it through
Yeah.
the combat sport,
Yeah.
kind of lens. And
Sure.
there's a term that, and admittedly, you said you don't watch a lot of football, right?
No, but I'm learning. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
when a team
I learned when I was hanging out with you and the crew and Sherry was with us. And when I learned that on the right side of the screen is the home team.
is the home team and the left is the away, yes.
Exactly.
And so
And also when you say the score, Howard, it's never 3-6. It's 6-3. It's the bigger number first.
Yes,
that
the
always
bigger
makes
number
sense
first,
to me
yes.
anyway. See, I'm not that dumb when it comes to sports. Come on, man.
So and I'll use football because it's going to tie right into what I'm about to say about John Cena.
Right.
When the team, when the offensive side of the football
Mhm.
has the football and it comes to fourth down,
Wait, what's offense? No, I'm only kidding with you.
the announcers will say, "Oh, they are forced to punt,"
Yeah.
which is an outright lie.
Mhm.
There's nothing in the rule book, in the NFL rule book, that says you have to punt on fourth down. Nobody's
Okay.
forcing them to do it. Is this a smarter move? Absolutely. Let's kick the ball away, let the defense play.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get the ball back. But you're not forced to
Cool.
punt. I don't care where you are on the field. You are not forced to punt. Because if that was the case on fourth down, when you're on the
Mhm.
10-yard line, you can kick a field goal.
Yeah.
So why aren't you forced to punt then? It's still fourth down.
Yeah.
So you're not really forced to punt. So I don't know where I heard it, but they're saying, "Oh, Cena's got to drop the Intercontinental title before he retires." No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Because
really.
if this is a true combat sport, he's on a hot streak right now, right? He could, he could go on a tear, and just like they do in football and baseball and hockey, in the playoffs, because Cena's in playoff mode right now.
Yeah.
It's not always the best team that wins. It's the hottest team that wins. A team that's playing the best baseball, the best football, the best hockey, basketball, whatever you want to call it, at that particular time.
Yeah, whoever's
That's who wins.
doing well, yeah.
Yeah, so Cena, on paper is doing very well. He's starting to so he could theoretically run the table and win the rest of his matches and not have to drop the Intercontinental title. And that just irked me because, again, let's keep it kayfabe, and I'm expecting, as a fan, John Cena to take that title home with him because nobody beat him for it. I thought that with the world title, and then he loses it. Now he's got the Intercontinental title. I get it; it completes his trifecta, Grand Slam thing, whatever he's got going on there. But he theoretically, in a combat sport, keep it kayfabe, he does not have to drop it before he leaves.
Do you find it confusing to explain to your friends or your family or something who might just know a little bit about wrestling and they're a little interested and they'll watch it or whatever, the inconsistencies like that? Like, why did he have to drop the title? Why do you assume that he has to? Well, he's retiring. He's definitely going to. No, not necessarily, So they blur the lines in a not good way in terms of, let's tell the fans that it's a complete, fabricated, predetermined entertainment style. But let's at the same time, tell them that there's things we have to do. I'll give you a great example. The Montreal screw job. It should have never happened. No need for it to happen. Because the bottom line is, period. I know I'm talking about two legends and a legendary promoter, but they all know better. If I was taught it, they were taught it. You don't get a choice when and where you drop the title. You should never have any choice in that. You might not like where you have to do it. You may have some say in where you're going to do it because you're respected. You have some pull. Ultimately, it's the promoter's decision. If you do not want to do what the booker promoter does, guess who's not the champion anymore? I stripped you of the title. Bye. There's no need to have a screw job. There's no need to pull this big wool over everybody's eyes, which makes me question the validity of it, and it always has.
I
It
think it's
never made
complete
sense
work.
to me.
I think it's complete work.
I lean
Honestly.
that way now too, but for a lot of reasons. But there was just no need for it. I mean, you do what you're asked to do, or you're not the champion. You don't have to lose it in the ring. Now, if somebody says to me again, I'd love to debate. I'll debate myself. Oh, but Mozart, what if he had gone to WCW claiming he was the unbeaten champion? Who gives a shit?
Who gives a shit?
You've
Yeah.
already said years before that, oh, we predetermined.
Right.
It's entertainment. Why is it? That's what I mean by you're blurring the lines when you feel like blurring them. But then you're trying to tell everybody he had to do that. We had to take the belt off of him. We had to do it that
There
way.
was and I might
No,
have
you didn't.
I might have the wrestlers wrong, and it's almost exactly what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, but in a little bit of a twist. And I think it was Ric Flair in Puerto Rico, maybe.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It was
And
the NWA. They wouldn't recognize the title change. Flair let it drop because his goddamn life was on the line.
right,
Because that's
yes,
what happened in Puerto Rico, and that's got nothing. They were dead serious about it, but that is not a culture where, at the time that they were told this is a work, they would
right,
have probably maimed Flair, legit.
right. And
He just wanted to
they
get
let the
the hell
title
out of
change
there.
happen, and they just took the
Mm-hmm.
belt back from them, and they were done.
Yeah, exactly. The NWA didn't. They weren't like, oh well, let's send somebody back and do a screw job. Guess what? Erased it from history. It never happened.
It never
Which
happened.
hence is why. And I've heard the number 22. I don't have a personal count, but Flair's
23, I
more than
think it
this.
is officially.
Is
I
it?
just
He's
watched a
more than a
video on it the other day.
16
I think it's
time.
23.
Where they get 16 from, I have no idea because I myself have counted more than 16. So again, blurring the line. Cena's the all-time most. He's not. He's not even close. Jerry Lawler's held the. Well, it's different because it's not that title and that supposed lineage, but he's had the Memphis title something over 40 times. Didn't we look that up a few months ago?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's an obscene
But
amount of times.
that's irrelevant though. But it really is. But the if you talk about the world title or the top title, I don't even want to call it the world title because they don't even know what it is. It's something. But when you talk about the top title at the time, now 17, okay, cool. Like we could probably trace that and it's probably legit. But again, you're branding somebody the greatest of all time who wasn't a traveling world champion, who only did it in one company for a short period of time. And it was short compared to some of the guys that had some of the predecessors. Again, you're just blurring the lines. And I get it in terms of marketing, but it's done so much that it becomes dangerous to the real history and lineage of pro wrestling. Like there should still be some legitimacy to it. Like if a promoter entrusts somebody with their top title X amount of times, you should get that accolade, right? Like I just think you should. I mean, you certainly earned it. Like they didn't put it on you because you didn't earn it, but that happens a lot today because you have 19 titles and you got to put them on somebody. But when you talk about the top title, it theoretically should be a guy who earned it or a girl who earned it because of something they're bringing to the table,
Right.
charisma, work rate, viewership, the last, oh my God, I can't believe we're at this level now. The last real megastar that they've made, in my opinion, is Roman. And he's on his way out.
Yeah.
And he's smartly so. He is larger than life. He could probably go do movies. He is probably the one guy that can have a marquee match with Cena or Brock and make it a real draw. Because that was done by design too. We talked about that. Is the wrestlers aren't a draw anymore. I have this theory that, and it may have been Vince himself. I know a lot of promoters. Obviously, when you have a star and you're hinging your business on that star, a la Hogan, Stone Cold, when they left, business got hurt really bad. So it makes sense to me why, from a promoter standpoint, you'd want a guy like Cena, who's a real company guy, who's not going to go anywhere, and there's really nowhere to go, right, to make that kind of
Right.
money and to make that, to have that kind of success in the sport now. So it makes sense to me on one hand, but at the same time, this is that blurring of the lines again. Greatest of all time? Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah.
You know, one of a major star, contributions galore. Yeah, you know,
Humanitarian, all of that.
there's so many other things.
Yeah.
Humanitarian. I mean, why wouldn't we just ride that? Because my God,
Right.
he's unparalleled. But instead, it's got to be about, you know, they did, and it's getting worse every time they, you know, WWE promotes him or talks about him. He's the greatest of all time. I mean, it's an opinion. Maybe I'm taking it a little bit too personally, but he's not even close. He's one of the great attractions in wrestling, you know. I dare say he never attracted a crowd like Andre the Giant, but you don't hear everybody saying Andre the Giant's the greatest of all time, you know. In the modern era, I think we've already established it's probably Hulk, you know,
Yeah.
or Rick, you know. They were positioned to do that purposely, you know. Why would I say them? You know, not because it's the amount of moves they know. It's not because they, you know, are the best technical wrestler in the world. It's because look at the amount of guys that each worked with that were different types of personas and wrestlers that were just lined up, great opponents that they just had epic feuds with over long periods of time, you know.
Right.
But you're hurting my feelings, man. Like you did this whole. You really think Gunther's going to go the run on this, huh?
Everything that I listen,
Do you
I
see a scenario where he doesn't? Give me something. Give me something where he doesn't. If it's going to go a different way, what are you thinking? Because you have a great feel for this stuff. I don't. I'm just like, this is what I would do, and this is why.
Everybody that I would have liked to have seen do it
Yeah.
is gone already. You know, I would have loved, you know, Matt Cardona,
Yeah.
Dolph Ziggler. I would have loved to see the Miz go with him one more time. You
You
know,
know, that would be a really good match. They had some good matches. Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, Damian Priest, Penta, although I'm not interested in, you know, in those guys. Like I'm just not
Not versus Cena. No, I don't see any
No,
value in.
yeah, and I'm not saying that they're not great entertainers and performers and wrestlers, but not for Cena. This, you know,
feels like it should be a bigger deal. Like they're trying to make it a big deal, but
they're trying like hell
fear
to make it a
is,
big deal.
I think my fear of it is they're going to shit the bed on it, just like they had the entire run. You know, like, oh, let's turn him heel for 2 weeks. I don't know. It lasted about a month. I don't think it was much longer than a month, maybe 2. Why? What was the point? Well, I can tell you why I switched back so quick, because it was failing miserably.
Because it was nosediving.
Yeah, that's to be kind about it. Yeah,
I couldn't, you know, I couldn't buy him as a heel because it looked hokey. It looked, you know, and you mentioned it earlier. You know, I'm convinced over the last, you know, I don't know, and the last couple of weeks, every week seems to get, you know, when you just, you know, when you say, oh, you know, this Raw was really bad, the next Raw is like, here, hold my beer, watch see how bad I can get. So each one gets progressively worse than the last, and I'm fully convinced, Mozart, that we spend more time prepping for this show than they spend prepping for Monday Night Raw.
Well, we prepped for about 20 minutes. Yes,
right.
probably.
I really believe that. Like, it's like, hey, everybody just show up to the building and we'll here's what's going to happen. And there's no logic to it. There's no sensible timeline. It's so confusing. And, you know, that whole thing that I watched a little bit of last night with Charlotte Flair backing out last week or whatever it was on the work. Now she's back in. Really, that lasted a week?
Yeah, It's
couldn't even milk that
confusing.
to organ. Have them go in down, however many, 4-3 or 5-4. Like milk that all the way to the freaking pay-per-view.
Yeah,
And then
why
out
did
comes Charlotte
you
Flair.
put that back in? Yeah. It's I don't think they particularly do a good job either of keeping issues separate. Like they seem to like meld people in and out of other people's issues. It's like, like I'm trying to think of an example, but it feels like a lot of stuff runs together, Like I mean, even kind of like with the 6-man last night, even though it ended up working out and being a pretty entertaining opener for the show. It was a really good opener. But you had like 2 or 3 different issues melding into that one match. Like I don't know that you really needed to do that. They're all kind of separate entities. But
Right.
they're trying desperately to intersperse Cena in with a lot of guys. I do think it's great, and I think him and Dom had a really good match. Super entertaining. Everything made sense. You could follow logically what they were trying to do. Not what they were trying to do, like what they were doing, and there's these bright spots of like hope, and then you get a great wrestling match. Like I love the Axiom Dragunov work.
Oh, he's
You make
phenomenal.
that belt kind of the as my peer Aiden Chambers would say, that the workers title. Now the U.S. title means a little something,
But that's what it was. Even when in Crockett's promotion, it was, between that and the television title, and the U.S.
But they
title
serve 2
was
distinct purposes too, though. We discussed this because in those days you might not get the U.S. title on every. You theoretically were going to get a television title defense every TV show with TV time remaining or a 10-minute time limit.
right.
So that was the purpose of your TV titles, to make sure that all the TV viewer could see a championship defended on each regular broadcast.
On free TV.
Unless you got another title match, unless you got a tag title, or unless you got the U.S. belt. But they even though they were 2 what you might consider the workers titles, the guys who were just going to bust their butts and put on the more technical sound and entertaining type of fights. The U.S. title was that one up just a hair away from your heavyweight title. It was the true secondary title, like the Intercontinental title was for the WWF World title.
Yes.
So if you wore the Intercontinental title back in those days, even up and I dare say until recently, it really, really meant something, because you were considered, you could technically, again, written into the booking, claim that you're the number 1 contender, because you are, if you're that champion, you're technically in line for the, now it seems now that they're so segregated, which is, you talked about the rules of football, like, which is a great example too. I kind of wanted to get back to that, where they're telling you you're forced to care to punt or however you put it.
Yes.
Could take it 2 ways. Could take it as maybe the announcers aren't saying that that's a rule, but now that's their only real option to get anything done, and now they're kind of forced into this. Depends on what they mean, like the context, and I don't know. But you could do that with wrestling even easier. You could take the context of the commentary and say, Cena, who's now the Intercontinental title, should be technically the top contender to what is it, Cody's title, to the WWE title. Or you could segregate it if you want to, and he's just going to make this title. He's bringing prestige back to the title. This is a prestigious title with a long history. He's going to defend it against whoever, like whatever they want to tell. Like you could use the commentary team, you could use the promos to kind of, instead of just these oftentimes generic, interview segments and promos, it's kind of like, I'm tough. I beat him up. I'm the champ. I'll take on anybody, blah, 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 blah. It's kind of like the same rhetoric, instead of coming out and being super entertaining. And I will say, though, Cena can be really entertaining on the microphone, so he can kind of take in a little bit of a different direction. He's very good at getting the crowd involved, and that's all like cool stuff.
But I just, on our other show, Matt Mandis, I talked about oh no, it was here. I'm sorry. We did a chat GPT with the family of wrestling.
Yeah, it was last week.
It was
that
here.
was cool.
So I just ran through Chat GPT. If it's not Gunther, who is John Cena's last opponent?
Oh,
And
wow.
it
Let's see
says,
how good Chad
if
is.
it isn't Gunther, here is the other name that has been floated or speculated. Take a guess at who the other name is. And we haven't mentioned him yet tonight, I don't think.
I haven't mentioned him yet tonight.
I don't think we have. I could be wrong.
I can't even guess. I feel like I threw out everybody. Hold on, let me.
Oh, we did mention him. I'm sorry. I think we did. I think we did.
Orton? Was it Orton?
AJ Styles.
I would say it should be, but they've already done it.
Right. But it says, but unless plans change, the front runner is still Gunther, and he is the one currently locked in WWE's internal plan.
Terrible. It's a terrible idea. And it's a terrible idea, and I'm not even going to say what time, because normally I would. Terrible idea. That's a terrible idea.
I don't get it.
Why is it a terrible idea, Mozart Fontaine? Oh, let me tell you, Howard. I'm glad you asked.
I'm glad you asked. I'm glad.
While you're sitting at a red light, choking on your roast beef, let me explain to you why it's a terrible idea. Well, because I just said there's nothing to gain from it. They already consider him a star, unless they're just outwardly admitting that he's not where they want him, and they're hoping Cena will get him there.
Right.
They're banking on Cena and having a really good match with him. Cena's come out of the woodwork and the stuff he did with Umaga was really surprisingly good years back. He's had great matches with a lot of these guys. Randy Orton. He's had some I'm missing a bunch of people. AJ. AJ was really, they really had a great match. Unbelievably good. So impressed with that work. I don't think Gunther's that good. I'm just going to flat out say it. He's not AJ. He's not Randy. He's not, and I'll say with a capital N-O-T, Umaga. Not happening. It's going to shit to bed. And if I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to come on and say, Howard, I was really shocked. They surprised me. Kudos to them. But if I'm the matchmaker and the money is on the line and somebody's saying, I don't know, TKO's like, listen, dude, if you don't deliver with this match, you're fired. That is not the guy I'm putting in there. Not by a long shot. And I wouldn't even dream of him in there.
Right. And why is it not a good idea? It's the same problem that I have with all of professional wrestling. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense.
I think that's essentially what I'm saying.
It just doesn't. It doesn't
makes no
flow.
sense.
But I'll tell you who would be a good surprise opponent. For John Cena. And I know you're not going to travel that far because
I'm
you're
available. I'm just saying,
but you are available.
Listen,
so Trips, if you're listening, I have two names I'm going to throw out to you right now, Trips.
I take a great attitude adjustment, by the way.
Right.
I take the 5-knuckle shuffle like nobody's. But there's nobody's shoulders that go flatter to the mat than mine. I'll take that 5-knuckle shuffle.
We have Mozart Fontaine offering his services up to be fed to the lion.
Only if my producer Steve Zapp can come in and write that whole entire angle right on through. Just give us a shot. Just saying.
See that? Yeah, you stole my thunder. I was going to say, but the only caveat is Steve Zapp has to produce the match and make it happen.
I'm not doing it.
Right. Then we're not just Trip. Then we're not. Don't even call then. If you can't meet our demands. Right. If you can't meet our demands, then don't bother calling. I don't even want a ticket to the show. I'll watch it on TV because I'm not paying them overpriced tickets and concession prices. I'll sit home and watch.
Howard a tour bus with some proper roast beef where he doesn't have to sit at red lights when he starts to choke, and on-site nurse, then we're not doing it. We're
right. Yeah. Then just forget
that's in the rider. That's just like removing all the brown M&Ms at the Van Halen concerts in 1979 or 80, whatever it was. If it's not in the rider that Howard gets his roast beef in a tour bus.
Prime roast beef, not this banquet style stuff. I want the real deal. And the gravy's got to be thick. And I need some soft rolls and some sharp provolone.
Was it the gravy that choked you? It was probably the gravy, wasn't it?
It might have been a little bit of both.
Gravy.
It could have been a little bit of both.
Oh,
But
Howard. Mm. Now I forgot what we were talking about. You were going to lay out. You were going to lay out some demands, and we got crazy for a minute.
right,
Oh, you were going to say who should it be? Who would you want in there?
who would I want? Man, I honestly, I think of everybody that's still left. I would love for Joe Hendry to just take it and
That's the money. That's the money right
yeah.
there. That is the money. Why? Because the dude's already over. Because people that aren't even that familiar with TNA know who he is. He's made enough appearances. It's not Gunther. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm probably hurting a lot of my peers' feelings and the internet fans' feelings. I don't see the magic in a heel like Gunther. I
Yeah.
just implore you, go back and watch any of the what he essentially is as close as you can get in the modern day world to a foreign villain heel, right? So go back and watch Baron von Raschke. Go back and watch Nikolai Volkov, Ivan Koloff, Nikita Koloff, Crusher Khrushchev. Um, I got Bam Bam Bigelow had that run. He did a Crusher Yurkov under Larry Sharp for a minute.
Crusher, yeah,
When you watch how they presented themselves as heels, I think you would be crazy, probably insane, to say that Gunther looks nearly as tough as any of those guys. And the Baron was kind of getting a little bit up in age when he got his real big run with a major territory. But they still came off much more vicious, much tougher, and way more charisma. I know I'm speaking to blasphemy, but I don't care. It's just my opinion. I don't look at him, and people were looking at me like you've never seen him? You got to go check him out. I watched the match, and I was honestly like, are you guys ribbing me? Like, I don't see it. Like, I don't, and it's not being mean. I mean, look, people will watch my work and be like, hey, he's not for me. Nah, I don't like, that's okay. He is not for me. I am not impressed. I don't get the fear. Listen, I've stood in the ring and watched Glenn Osborne walk to a ring. I'm not standing in the ring and being like, oh shit, maybe this guy's gonna, Gunther's gonna come down and hurt me. No, I stood in and watched Glenn walk down a ring. There's a lot of guys that, even though it's a work, when you're in the moment, you still get that, oh shit, here he comes. He's in, oh my God, there's that persona. If I'm standing in the ring and I can imagine myself watching Hulk and Animal run to the ring, I'm probably shitting my pants for real. Like, oh God, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
He's not that guy that does that for me. Not at all.
No. And speaking of vicious heels, even probably the greatest villain to come out of Johannesburg, South Africa, Colonel De Beers.
Colonel De Beers. How did I forget De Beers? He was
meaner and nastier.
He was mean, dude. Like, he was so what's the word I'm looking for? Meticulous and calculated.
Calculated, yes.
De Beers wasn't necessarily super exciting, but what made him cool was he was so nasty and calculated.
He was plotting
how can we forget,
that he did.
How can we forget probably one of the greatest foreign heels of all time, the Iron Sheik?
Oh, yes.
There's nothing about this incarnation of a foreign heel that's making me remotely scared, impressed by the I don't see it, man. Like, I don't see the ring general gimmick. I've been in the ring with a lot of ring generals, and I don't see it there.
You know who was a better foreign heel than Gunther was Ludwig Kaiser.
I was right on the cusp of his work, but if I remember, he's definitely better in the ring.
He's just got, and I think our producer Steve said, he just got a punchable face. Like, there's just something about him that makes you want to punch him in the face.
Now I'll have to go back and watch some old work. But
watch
I really wanted to be impressed by this guy. I'm like, oh, he's great. Oh, you got to see him, man. Oh, he's the second coming. He's the Messiah. I don't know what you're looking at, because I don't see it, guys.
There was nothing. There's nothing militant about him. There's nothing evil.
Exactly. Yeah.
nothing to make me say, yeah, I
You know
don't.
what it is to me? Like I worked under the lineage of and maybe this is it. I don't know. Maybe Triple H loves the guy for this, but there's a slight reminiscence that I equate him to Killer Kowalski, except Killer Kowalski was given the nickname because he was a killer. He was vicious in the ring. He was very
He earned
technically
it.
sound. Killer was sound, very sound. And I'd worked under Coach Hollow, and I'd worked briefly under Killer Kowalski, and to be in his presence was intimidating. And if that's what they're going for, they haven't hit the mark. And I
No.
think they, in a way, because he kind of like wears. I was looking at that last night. He's kind of wearing the robe and kind of reminded me of Killer a little bit, looks wise. I don't know, maybe not. It just reminded me, but he's not the Killer. I mean, Kowalski had the claw, and he did the abdominal claw. That he just was vicious, and he would just tear you apart. And you really, you would pair him up. The promoters paired him up with these technical guys or these heroes. So you got Killer wrestling, guys like Thez because of the technical background. Then he's wrestling Bruno because Bruno's the big muscle guy, the hometown hero. And what better villain? I'm not feeling that villain-esque, scary feel. Like what? In other words, if you put him against Cena, what are the chances I think that he's really going to beat Cena in this match? And it's pretty much none. And then if he does, as we've said ad nauseum already, it doesn't matter. Like, what's he gained from it? Like,
Right.
There's got to be something better. Please just let there be something better, because I really wanted a better payoff for John's last match. I really did. But if Chat GPT says it, then it's probably right. I'm so upset. I'm just ready to
I hope I'm dead wrong, but I just
I do
get this
too.
in my gut that this is what's going to happen, because
Yeah.
the one thing that I can say about WWE is they will always disappoint me when it comes to big matches like this.
It's kind of like me, right? I'll always disappoint you when it comes to content for our talk show.
No, you're actually the complete opposite. And it's funny because
Yeah.
when I first started doing WCW retro with but when Stro was sick for a little bit, I did it by myself, and I would literally be like, I would have this whole thing like laid out. I would print stuff out, and I would be kind of not reading it, but talking about it. And I'm through like 6 pages of stuff, and I look up, I'm like, oh, we've only been on for 45 minutes. I got another hour, 15 minutes to fill, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. And then I've had some other co-hosts come and go that they weren't real reliable, but then you came along, and
Had a lot to
we
say
hit it
about
off,
nothing, huh?
and I'd say we always has, even if it's nonsense, like we talk nonsense a lot of times, here and on the show,
yeah.
and even
This is
in
all
our
subjective too. Like I said, the only thing that's not subjective in booking is the point, to make money.
to make money, right?
That's wrestling is a business. I mean, you take an art form, but you've made it a business, right? So there's that fine line of losing the integrity of the art and making money. And I quote, check out this pun. I wrestle with that when I do shows now, because it don't take a whole bunch. And what does the promoter need? How can I artistically have fun with the other guys, let the crowd have fun, but be believable,
Right. Yes.
And I've been fortunate to work with a lot of veterans. I did a quick show this weekend, a little spot show. I was supposed to referee, and due to some no shows, I ended up in 2 matches, and I had a blast in both. And I was on the opposite ends of the spectrum in each one. I did a 6-man with a bunch of inexperienced guys who were out there cutting their teeth and did real well. But I didn't play much of a role. I just kind of listened to them and filled a spot in the match.
Right.
Technically, that would have been fine if I wasn't in it, because I was, working as babyface, and you can always stack the odds against baby faces. It could have been 2-on-3. Would have been a better story probably, and then I got the chance to work in the finale of the show with some veterans, with our buddy King Kalua and Andrew Anderson, the reinforcer, and I'd known of him over the years, but I never met him. And we got in the ring, and we locked up, and I knew I was in the ring with a real professional. There's a different feel. There's a smoothness to that you don't learn overnight. You know what I mean? But my point is when you're trying to preserve the art and do business at the same time, so then you find out, well, what does the promoter want? Okay, this is his goal. What if and this is what we talk a lot of times about wrestling becoming real. I was hired to be a referee, special guest referee, which never materialized. I wasn't advertised as that. It was just going to be a surprise type of thing because I'd done a shot there before, and the crowd was familiar. But at the last minute, you end up in the match, and it's better than it would have been the other way. That happened a few times, as you know, with some of the stuff work that we had done with ECWA, where last minute changes ended up working. Not last minute changes for the sake of changes. Let me be clear, because they're very, very, very directionally driven.
This was a very much on the fly, very last minute change.
My music was playing, and I was asked to referee. Based on a real injury that happened in the ring, and it couldn't have worked out better. And we talked about this because I love doing everything in wrestling, and this kind of goes back to our. I never thought, we've had a lot of conversations too, Howard, about how do you bring back K-Fabe. We've talked to Mr. Ooh La La. We talked to Glenn Osborne. We've talked to Stro from WCW. We've talked to numerous people, Steve himself, our producer. And I was like, yeah, you really can't do it now. But I'm kind of starting to change my opinion, because I think that people are so fed up with the over-the-top nonsense that they will start to buy in to, over a period of time, not that they're seeing a legitimate, straight-up contest, but they're going to, if we do it correctly, question, did he really get hit? Maybe they really don't like each other. Maybe there's some real backstage beef with those guys, or locker room. Maybe they just don't like each other. Like, I don't know. That's the way I think that we can start to take it back a little bit, is start to have the fans question whether or not what they saw was, for lack of a better word, real. Right. So, and I think that that's all like you want, is make it make sense and make it look real.
Nobody's asking. That's it.
Nobody's asking the guys and girls to be perfectionists. If you're doing a high risk spot, high risk from both the perspective of it looks really high risk, or it really is. For example, you're doing a dive to the outside, and you got to make sure that you're landing properly, and you're landing on your opponent properly, or one or both of you is going to end up real hurt. There's going to be a slip up here or there. You can't indict people for that. But what you can indict them for is they're really just not caring and just not knowing what to do in simple mistakes. If somebody slips off of somebody, you can't have a BS collision in the middle of the ring and not in some way instinctively know how to cover that up, or even have talked about it. Like, I can remember being new, and I talked to a lot of my friends, and even not so new, and I'd say we just get talking like this, and in the dressing room while we're putting on boots or trunks or whatever, and it's like, hey, what do you do, when you forget something, or something just goes awry, and some of the guys, I have a go-to move, I have a go-to position in the ring. The other guy doesn't have to know about it. It's just a reset. They can, and then I started to realize that everybody had a different, unique way of being able to get through the matchup. And if you think about it from the combat perspective that we were talking earlier, UFC, kickboxing, boxing, when it, not that there hasn't been, and I'm 100% sure based on things I've heard that at times, each one of those events, there's been some type of work put in it, the fix, whatever you want to call it. By and large, it's probably not, but there's definitely been some documented cases of that.
Right.
Doesn't take away from the fact that you're still getting punched.
Right.
You're still getting grappled on. You're still getting,
Right.
hooked into some type of submission hold that doesn't feel good, or a choke, and doesn't take any away from that. But my point with it is that if you're, you know, if you get lost, you reset somewhere. Whether you're, a catch wrestler or a jiu-jitsu guy, you got some way of going back to base. If you're a boxer, and you're starting to get rocked, you've got some way of going back to base. You can block, you can parry, you can slip, you can, shoulder roll, slip out of the way. There's a lot of different techniques in the fight world that can get you, and even in real self-defense, like, there's go-tos. Wrestling, though, is no different, just because it's a performance. And that's why you'll hear a lot of the guys say, especially on the independent scene where they've got the freedom to do that, I really only plan what has to be planned. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Well, and we talked about this on the show, not this show, but I think on
Yeah.
our other one. What do you do when something goes awry? And all that whole conversation started with
Yeah,
Magnum
that was a
TA
good one too.
DiBiase,
Yeah.
and DiBiase gets whipped to the ropes. The turnbuckle breaks or
Yeah.
comes loose. So
Right.
what do? Well, if you're a heel DiBiase, you pick up the turnbuckle and use it, and you whack Magnum over the head with it. It
Yeah.
didn't necessarily affect the outcome of the match, but it looked so seamless the way they did it, and it was a shoot ring breaking because everybody came
Yeah.
in to try to fix it. If that was meant to happen, they would have let it happen. But there was
Yeah. It
four or
just,
five guys
yeah.
trying to fix it after DiBiase put it back down. So and sometimes, like you said, but again, it goes back to these are two, of the best to ever do it, DiBiase, Magnum TA. But
Hey, what's
you see,
funny? I always wondered. Remember, you told me about the interview that you saw with TA. I think you either sent it to me or you had told me about it. Or maybe it was Steve. It was one of you two were telling me that he always liked to get color. That was his thing, because he would bleed because it just got him sympathy. So he was probably
yeah,
going to bleed anyway. But hell, there's a turnbuckle. Let's just throw a
right,
turnbuckle shot. Now there's your reason. That's why you.
right.
So that's an audible in the ring. So let's just
And that's a
assume.
believable reason to bleed. Honestly, you get
Yeah.
hit with that steel
Well,
turnbuckle. Yeah,
what another believable reason is to bleed is, and I hope to have him on, either here or VOC Nation real soon. Greg Spitz,
I was just going to bring him up.
caught a nasty one. Greg bled. Um, it was real blood. I can assure you there was no catch-up packets. That's a hard way. That wasn't necessarily planned, but it happened. But you can hard way on purpose. So this is my problem with the and God bless him because he was one of the greats. But I feel like Austin popularized the hockey fight. You can't just sit there and punch somebody in the head over and over again and one of two things not happen. You're going to break your hand or something's going to bleed, whether it's
Right,
here. It's unbelievable. If you ever watch my work, I will not ever, I'm trying to think, ever consciously throw a punch to the head. I don't like doing it. I can't stand it. It's always jawline,
right,
because that's where you're going to punch somebody in a fight. You're not walking up and punching them in the forehead, you know.
right.
Now, again, I have seen Harley was great at it, working the hard way, because again, it's different to punch somebody right here. Look at where I'm at, right? Than to punch
Yeah,
somebody in the hardest part of their head, right? So if you're
right.
gonna,
Well, you got that corner right
if
there
you,
that's going to
that's,
bust it open.
it's not one of the knockout areas in boxing, but it sure as hell don't feel good when somebody's punching on you, and it could certainly do damage. but you're just typically not going to go up and start punching somebody right here in the cranium. Makes no sense.
Right.
Doesn't even really hurt. It's probably going to break your hand. And then to trade 5 or 10 of them. I just never liked it. I have some great friends that throw great looking punches to the head. I won't do it. I'll sell the hell out of it for them. Because again, that's suspended disbelief. I just won't do it. I don't think it's believable enough. And I had a point to this. What was my point? Resetting.
Resetting it.
And when something goes wrong. So again, this is kind of the theme of the show tonight is how do we, believe it or not, fans of I still call it a Lariat, the Legion as Scott as Steve calls him. Thinking of my buddy Scott, because we talk about this all the time too. He grew up with me watching the Road Warriors. That was his guys. But again, but the whole loose theme of this thing is K-Fabe, bringing back K-Fabe. And I, again, even not knocking somebody, because listen, I didn't make it to the big time. It needs to be clear. I'm not that guy. I'm not bitter. I just honestly really don't see Gunther being that scary or that good. I think when you over sensationalize somebody to the point that modern wrestling, modern fans do, it's always so and so's the greatest. He's so much better than guy X from yesteryear. And then I'll look at him and I'm like, no, but fundamentally, from a trainer wrestler standpoint, he's not. But even from a kayfabe work standpoint, he's not. So that's I think where I get. But when you start talking about how do we bring out kayfabe, is stop being overly sensationalistic. When you think about, there was a reason things were done like they were done for years in wrestling, and every generation came along. It happened to me. The guys before were like, "Oh, kid, our generation. Let us show you how to do it." Yeah, you had a little bit of that, but for the most part, they wanted to teach you the craft and pass it down for a reason, because it worked for over a century, and it still would work. Drew money. Again, what's the point of booking? To draw money. That's not subjective. It never will be.
Bill Watts said it. Put an ass every 18 inches. That's the job.
Subjective part is how you get there. Many ways to get there, but it's not subjective.
But the end result is not to be the same.
And by the same, like, let me just clarify too, Howard, because I know you know this, but for the listeners, it doesn't have to be the same in terms of its formulaic finishes. The whole point of it is to make money. So whatever you come up with better ultimately make money. And the facts, this is not my Mozart's opinion, you can look these up. The facts are viewership is at an all-time low overall. All these apps are now starting, the CEOs and board members and this one and that one, and the internet. Again, this is the downside of the internet, but it's kind of the upside too for people who want to prove a point, because you can't keep a secret. These people aren't happy with the money they've paid for these big time products from WWE in particular. I've seen some of the AEW pay-per-views numbers. They're abysmal. So this is not a boom in the business. This is not I don't care what insert guy X and how great you think he is. This is not a boom period in wrestling. It's not even close. As a matter of fact, it's the other way. It's sliding off.
It's definitely trending the other way.
Which is the big concern. The other way. That sparked a lot of this conversation tonight. That's a concern. And one of your major modern stars in John Cena is getting ready to retire. What are you going to do about it? Put Gunther in the ring with him? It's not going to work.
Right.
Reigns, he's great. AJ, you already did it. They've, excuse me for the term, they've blown their load with anything that they can do that's within eye shot, right? The only thing that they can do now is a huge surprise, and they can swerve everybody. Batista comes walking down, or I'm not saying this is going to happen, because I don't believe it is, but it would take something of the magnitude. Jericho comes back, which he will, trust me, but it probably won't be for this match. Sorry, AEW fans, he's not staying. He never planned on staying, in my opinion. It's a money grab, and you can't blame him. So I'm not saying that. you'd have to have a big. I think that Randy could work. I'd rather, it's probably not the optimal thing to do, but it's better than anything that's on the table right now because they do have a history and they've had some really good feuds over the years. And he's
Right.
also been mysteriously missing. I don't know why. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know. I have no idea. But unless the other big thing is, and I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna manifest it into being. It's got to be Joe Hendry. I
It's
mean,
got to be.
I don't give a shit if you got Gunther
Say
walk
his
into the
name.
ring, say his name, and there he is, and I don't know, maybe Gunther trips, falls down, and skins his knee and has to go back and put a Band-Aid on. I don't care how you
Maybe
do it, right?
maybe his flight gets delayed or
You know,
something. He can't get out of whatever
exactly.
airport he's in.
Right there you go. Maybe he gets locked in the showers and can't get out. I don't care how you do it, but you
Right.
gotta put somebody like Joe, Dolph, Zach, somebody who's coming back or just making their name. Again, it would have been great for Dom, but they've done it. They've done it already. Can't go back. Can't
And they're going to
put
do it
that
again in
chain back in the
Survivor
box.
Series, so
And they're
it doesn't
doing it
really
again,
matter.
right? So there's no point. Like a third one would be like, really? Okay, you kind of wasted
Right.
half. Yeah, not take this in the right way because I think Dom's the best overall heel out there right now. But you can't. You basically waste half of Cena's run if you do a whole 3-match series with him right now. Should have planned
Right.
that out in the beginning. Because doesn't this feel though to you, Howard? You watch wrestling all your life. Doesn't this feel unplanned? Like they have no idea what they're doing next.
There's no direction there.
Um, I
I
don't
don't.
even. I'm not even so sure the tournament has a direction. Again,
Yeah,
other
I don't
than
know.
what the obvious is, and I hope you're wrong on that. I usually never hope you're wrong, but I got to tell you on this one, I
I
do
hope
because
I'm wrong. I'm going to go on record
it's
now. I hope I'm wrong, but
yeah,
I
it's
just have this feeling. But
yeah.
as we reset this, and we need to start filling, the rabbit hole back in,
Why?
so that way producer Steve can do what he's got to do to magically make this show look good, aesthetically, and and
Yeah.
clean up whatever mess we made,
And you got to
and
you got to
things.
get some sleep because you got a big boy job now where we actually have to go and do something.
It's funny
I'm
because
only messing with you.
for the next 2 weeks, it's just me and my foreman on the job and no workers because we're waiting on material. So I'm literally watching a job site that's got nobody on it, but contractually I have to be there.
Hey,
So
look, it gives you plenty of time to study wrestling, come up with
yeah,
some
well,
ideas.
that's why I'm able to send you all that messages during the day because I ain't doing nothing during the
I know I
day.
could read half of them today. I was like, hey, dude, wait a minute, I got to do some work here.
But Mozart, it's always a pleasure, brother. Um, you know, enjoy talking. Whatever we
Yeah.
talk about, it's been great. Um, I do hope, and I'm so glad that you picked up on my Bonnie Tyler reference earlier on, and wasn't sure if
You need a
anybody would.
hero. So
So now,
wait,
if there's a
and we
resurgence in her music, it's because of me and Bonnie. I want a percentage of
yeah,
that if your viewership spikes in your videos because I
exactly.
started.
So wait, so if let's put a nice little let's bookend it. So you need a hero. Who's your hero, and what is your idea to kind of put a little more believability back in, and maybe put a little bit more magic and kayfabe back into it for the fans, so there is a little bit of magic.
I think they just like we talked about. They need a reset. I think they need to rein that circle in. And I know, in theory, it's about spreadsheets and numbers and all this stuff, but they got to stop having businessmen and number crunchers running a wrestling company. They need wrestlers, former wrestlers, current whatever that that want to run a wrestling company and just make that Vince McMahon click. I hate using that word because that's kind of
Hmm.
Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, all those guys, but get that
Yeah.
circle small and keep it under wraps. Stop leaking stuff out. Stop, talking to people. It's and surprise me. Like I would want, I want to be, and I think what they did a huge disservice in. I think Matt Cardona should have won and beat LA Knight, because now that gives me hope that maybe Dolph Ziggler could have beaten Solo, and if he doesn't, he doesn't. But now any surprise guest they have coming in, it seems like they're going to lose, and now I don't care. I don't care who they bring in next; they're going to lose.
That's been a mistake that they're not the first company to do that. But like your Chappie GPT experiment last week, which actually booked that Armstrong and Von Erich feud. If you guys listeners didn't see that, that's an interesting show because Chat GPT actually did a decent job of booking that, right? But you got to keep everybody strong. So the big mistake is always bringing in. You can go back through history, but the recent ones. We'll start with WCW, fairly recent. They just killed it. Anytime you bring in a TNA star, they seem to have the need to make sure that everybody knows that's just TNA. If you're going to cross over, do something for the company, for the
benefits
brand.
Both.
That benefits both. Yeah. I'm not saying have a guy, listen, would it be ridiculous to have Cardona walk in and beat everybody on? Yes, it would. But they don't need to come in and lose everything either. Like, come on, give them some credibility. And again, the sad thing is that these guys were former pretty big WWE stars. Again, when we talk about, like, for the young kids out there who, and it was before my time too, but Beatlemania, anything that you tell me that happened after Beatlemania is a joke in terms of like music. Like, okay, really, the next big surge was the 80s when you stood in a record store line to get a Def Leppard or Motley Crue or Bon Jovi ticket. That was reminiscent of those times. Didn't quite touch it, but you had this real big resurgence that people were just falling apart to get to these shows, right? Wrestling, Hulk, Austin. It wasn't really Cena. They tried, but whatever. It was good enough. It's close. But the point is that when you look at these big booms and these big resurgence type of things, I think part of that was, and it's not coincidental, with two things. Like, because I was talking about, let me wrap up that first. So I was talking about when you bring in talent and you just shit on them, does nothing for the other talent, does nothing for you, because now it looks like that's what you did. It's pretty apparent. But then, so that's a period on that. So you can't do that. That's bad booking. If you're going to talent share, you book for the story, not for the ego. Because again, that's not making any money. The point of your booking is to make money. They've not done a damn thing for those guys if they don't hire them back in and start to push them up the card immediately, if not sooner.
Absolutely.
All they've done is give them a nice payday, which benefits them personally, but it doesn't really help the business overall. So
no, it doesn't.
The other point I was going to make is when you had these resurgences, which this is completely separate from what I was just saying, around each resurgence was K-Fabe. You believe that King Kong Bundy, that Paul Orndorff, that Roddy Piper, that Kamala, Andre were all going to beat Hogan. Or at least they had a really good chance.
A good shot at it, yes.
When Austin resurged, they K-Fabe again. You believed that to a degree that he wanted to kick Vince's ass. There were people that actually were like, I don't know, maybe he really doesn't like him.
Right. Yeah.
And remember, at that point, the curtain was much more open than it was in the Hogan era. Now think about it. Like, we're supposed to believe that, this big tough, whatever nationality he is going to beat Cena. He's not. And if he does, again, the other side of that is who cares, right?
Right. Yep.
And you're told so much right out in the open now, so, but you see, and I talked to you about it, like I mentioned Brock selling the absolute hell out of One Punch from Reigns.
Yeah.
We don't have to do a whole lot. You don't have to do Suplex City 37,000 times. That one sell from the One Punch meant more to me than anything that happened in that segment, because it showed me that Brock was willing to do business and say, he's the hero. Let me make him look like a badass. Because if he can hit me and I'm going to roll out of the ring like that, well, then
Right.
and he did it, and Reigns
And
played
he
his
did it. Yeah.
part. I don't want to say played his part. Reigns was perfect in his role because I don't believe those guys are playing parts. I believe that they believe that's who they are, which is why it works,
Right. They
Um,
have to. Right.
but once you get that level of guy out of there who can put on, a performance and can throw believable looking punches, and we talked about, Logan earlier, like, these are the guys that they need to have on TV more, but due to contract stipulations and outside, it's basically contract negotiations. Like they've negotiated these limited dates, and both sides are okay with that, and I'm fine with that. Like whatever. But my point is, when you don't see these guys enough, it does two things. It's good on one hand because they don't get stale as quick, and it means something when they come back. But at the same time, they don't have anybody to lean on. Like you can't watch that little piece of business Roman and Brock did last night to end that show and tell me that you now believe LA Knight's in the heavyweight title picture. He doesn't look
Right.
as
Yeah.
credible as those guys,
No.
And I'm not knocking talent. I'm just saying whether it's booking, little bit of performance, like they got to be careful, man. That main event scene is stale, big time stale. They're in good shape at the bottom, though. At the bottom, you look at those kids from NXT, and you look at who they have at the mid card level. There's a lot of potential, but as Steve has schooled us on, there's this fear of pulling the big money players out that let these guys have a run. But that's when I say if you look at mainstream sports and baseball, football, basketball, if they're not performing, they either don't get a contract renewal, or in some cases they can even be renegotiated or traded at that point.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
I don't know how wrestling contracts are written in comparison to that, but there should be some, hey, if you can't stay uninjured for this amount of time. That's a tough one in wrestling because injuries happen accidentally, and there's really no way. All right, let me backtrack on that. And I know I'm extending this, but this is worth a listen in a chat. That's a thing where I'd like that to be able to happen, but it can't for several reasons. Because number one, you can't say, oh, he took an unnecessary risk, because the only person who knows that is the person who does it. So there's no
Right.
way to really enforce that. Like you might know you're reckless. Maybe your partner knows you're reckless. Maybe you got this reputation, but you won't be able to go into a court of law and say, look at this tape, sir. Judge, he was purposely negligent. The judge isn't going to get it. It's not going to translate to a non-wrestler, a non-performer. So you can't do that. But there are other incentives that you can put around it. You can say, look, if I constantly look at your matches and me as your producer, if I'm assigned to you and I'm not happy with your performances, and we've documented it, just like you would be at your job, just like I would be at my job, just like a football player who's expected to get certain stats because that's what they were hired upon. If they're
Right.
not hitting those stats, then they're either benched, pulled, probably contract renegotiated, aren't going to be renewed the following year. There should really be some of those parameters that you can control. There's controllables around it. Not,
Right.
I would love to be able to say, hey, look, if you can't, because in a way, you would know this way better than me. If you can't stay uninjured in football, they're not going to keep hiring you.
They're not,
So
right.
there is
They're
a
not, yeah,
certain
not gonna
point
play.
where you
Yes.
have to say to a guy, you can't not get injured. We can't risk that money on you. I think that's a real thing to be able to do, but I don't think you
Right.
could really put it into a contract. Well, if you get injured during this run, because we got so much money on you, that's impossible to do. But I wish there were a way that you could do that,
Right.
because you can work as
Well,
safe as hell, but then still end up injured, you know.
right. Maybe we'll talk about that on another rabbit hole.
Let's do it.
But
We can go down it.
listen, as we wrap this up, don't forget to check out all of the other shows that are on the I Still Call It a Lariat podcast network, the ever growing I Still Call It a Lariat podcast family
Yes.
of shows that we have going on. Don't forget to check out, the ECWA 1967 on YouTube. Their Night of Unusual Matches is up there.
Oh yeah.
Great card. You want to see that. And don't forget to check them out as well. We'll be broadcasting live tomorrow from our other show on the VOC Nation, Matt Madness with Morgan and Mozart, starting at 7:30.
Who do we have?
Then,
do we have anybody locked in that we can talk about or no?
Yes, we have the ECWA president Cheyenne Ortiz joining us.
He's
Wednesday
a character.
night.
That's a good hit.
I can't
He'll
wait to talk to him again.
Yes.
So I have a couple bones to pick with him, so I will do that.
I got grievances too. That's why we have this rabbit hole. This is why Steve turned us loose, because we always got grievances. Steve's he's dying in the middle of the day when we're doing the group text, and I'm like, and we got grievances with stuff. I'm like, well, I guess we got show content for tonight.
Yeah, just turn it into a show. That's all.
It's meant to be entertaining. Listen, we're not here to alienate anybody, to force an opinion. These are just my opinions.
Right.
These are Howard's opinions. We invite you to go back and watch some of our other, I still call it Lariat shows. We got some
comment on them. Tell us we're wrong. Tell us you hate our guts, whatever. Just comment, share, and
I would
let us know how we're doing.
I would love for somebody to poke some holes in my stuff. I want to be wrong about some of this stuff, but I can't. I'm unable to fathom other options at times.
Yeah.
Not out of stubbornness, just out of I can't rationalize it. So somebody's got like some reasons why, some of the guys who I'm not seeing what others see.
That's why I said I'm holding out for a hero. Maybe the hero comes from the fans. I don't know. But the hero's got to come from somewhere.
Well, they are the consumer, so guys, never forget that if you're not happy with the product, you're the only one that can change that. You can't, obviously you can't call the board up and be like, hey, book my favorite guy into the championship, but you can speak with your time and your money.
Yes, sir. But Mozart, it's been fun. I appreciate your time, and we'll be doing this again next week. Till then, everybody have a great night.
There you go, Howard. Take